Glad you're with us tonight. You on the internet and wherever you are, we're glad you're with us. Hopefully, you'll get some good stuff tonight because I think, as I always say, we got some good stuff. We're talking about our topic is feelings of shame, and that is a big subject, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed and that we all need to work on. I'm going to be talking, because we're in step 5, I'm going to be talking about the exact nature of our wrong. The exact nature of the wrong. I kind of ties in with our topic here of shame. And I don't know, I feel really strong about trying to convey that aspect of things, that if we can grab the understanding of the feelings of shame and the exact nature of our wrong, that helps us to see what's going on so that we can deal with our stuff in our life, so that we can start the healing process inside. Isn't that what we all want? All right. So, and if you've already started, further help you to further along your healing process. So I think it will be a good talk tonight, a good information. Hopefully I'm able to communicate it in such a manner that everybody can grasp it and give you some new pictures to help you to come to a better understanding of yourself and the process that you're wanting to go through. So hopefully it'll help you. Step 5 is we admit to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrong. That sounds almost familiar there, doesn't it? The exact nature of our wrong. That's what that's not to make you feel bad, even though we may feel bad, and we probably will feel bad about our wrongs, right? But if we really come to understand what that statement says, the exact nature, or how about this, and I'll talk more about this, but what has driven us into those behaviors, then that helps us to begin to make that shift, that turn, to get us into a different place that we want. But we have this natural nature, as Apostle Paul talked about, that you want to do good, but you don't do good, and that I want to do, I don't do. So we'll talk more about that later. I don't even think I had that scripture down, but so. Thoughts, questions, and quotes. Let's just go ahead and I'll just do this and then I'll ask that question. Hopefully I don't forget it. Thoughts, questions, and quotes. William James was recognized as one of the fathers of psychology. And this quote is, the greatest revolution in our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing their inner attitude, okay, of their minds, can change the outer aspect of their lives. What you think about, you bring about. Have I talked about that down here? What you think about, you bring about. What Tebow? Have I talked about what Tebow? Okay. What you think, that's what you think about, you bring about. What Tebow. So that's what William James said in, I think, the early 1900s. Viktor Frankl said this. I put this quote down. I've read it before, but I really like it because it's really good. It says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose our responses. You get to choose. You say, well, somebody made me do this. You chose it, whether you realize it or not. Okay, and there was a space in there, and sometimes you rush right on through that space. You know what I'm talking about? So there's And in that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So to be able to think before you react, okay, be proactive instead of reactive. I haven't talked about that for a long time, but we have to learn how to be proactive, and that means you think before you act. How many of you think before you act? Don't answer that. And so we have to learn how to do that. And if you do that, if we get even better at that, that helps us to have more power in our life, to be able to choose our responses, have more freedom, and then we have growth, and we have that freedom that I'm talking about. Next saying that I've got down here, and I don't think I've talked about this for a long time, and this is really big in my opinion. And I don't know for sure where I got this, but before you respond, when something happens, okay, this ties in with Dr. Viktor Frankl's statement. Before you respond, Dr. Frankl didn't say this, but before you respond, ask yourself. So we need to ask ourselves. See, now we're in that spot, that space that we're talking about. So you have time to do a little checkup from the neck up. What am I thinking? Okay, all right. Instead of letting my emotions push me around and cause me to act out, we're trying to think, if we can think. And I don't mean to be sarcastic there, but sometimes when we get emotionally worked up, our brain shuts down, so it turns off our ability to think because we've let our emotions just run wild. Anytime it wants to stick its head up, we've always allowed it. So anyway, before you respond, ask yourself, is this true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? You may want to ask yourself about your response. Is my response true? Is it kind? Well, that's a cleaner, isn't it? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And necessary. Well, I just want to say it. I'd feel better if I just spew this all over the place. But is it necessary? Is it really kind? Is it true? I would add in, is it beneficial myself? But anyway, just thought I'd throw that one out there. How you like that one? I like it. If we could only think of that in that space, you know what I mean? In that space between. But it takes practice, right? Practice makes permanent, right? Not perfect, but permanent. All right. So, and if we practice wrong stuff, the wrong stuff would be permanent. So we want to practice the healthy stuff, the right stuff. Mark Twain. Here you go, Mark Twain. See what Mark Twain has to say. Samuel Clemens. Everybody knows that, right? It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that's just not true. Okay. This is Mark Twain said this. It ain't what you know, it ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Like believing a lie, what you believe, it's what you know for sure that's just not so. Okay? It's not what you don't know. It's what you think you know that's messed up. Right? That's Mark Twain. Have I said enough? Yeah, let me ask you a question. This is a question about, we have kind of different segments here. It's Saturday Night Live, Life Recovery, and where I kind of talk about what we're going to be doing in the meeting, and then I do the questions, and then we're going to read the steps here in a moment, and then we're going to go through the steps and step reflection, and we talk, kind of do some dialoguing of it, and then I come up and talk at the end of the meeting about the topic, trying to tie my topic into the present evening topic. My question is, if we have to cut one of those sections out, what would be your least favorite section that you think that we could eliminate if we had to?
Why do you have to cut any out?
You
gotta make time short.
Well, if, last week we talked about trying to add music into the element, and if we do that, we may have to, shift some things. That's what I was thinking. And I was thinking about this today, and I thought I'd run it by you, see. But that's an interesting question you have there, Matthew. So let's ask a different question. So if we said there's one thing that we absolutely want to keep, and everything else is optional, what's the one thing out of the different sections that we do that you would want to keep? Yeah.
All of it. Got another 30 minutes back onto it.
Okay.
Used to.
You guys, we're not adding. This was a question. You answered a question in the context of the question, the subject matter. How about that?
I like all of it. I couldn't pick.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. For some reason, I felt like that's the answer I was going to get. So.
That's a good thing.
Well, that is a good thing. Thank you very much. So what?
If you had a full reflection, because you go over it anyway.
I missed what you said.
The reflection part.
What about it?
Because we talk about it up through the whole thing anyway.
Yeah, but we wouldn't necessarily be able to talk about it if we didn't have somebody pushing the reflection aspect.
Well, that's true there, yeah, point there.
And I like motivating you guys to study and learn and then try to think about it and then communicate about it because I feel that that's part of your transformation process, in my opinion. So, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is to help people to grow and to change. And I think one of the most effective ways is that part of our system, teaching the step and going over the reflection and talking about it and moving through that, in my opinion. So, but hey, my opinion don't matter, does it, Matthew?
Good ball.
So, all right. Okay, well.
You mean at 6:30?
Oh, okay. Just add on more time.
We also got time.
Yeah. Heather, are you ready? And Heather's going to come up and read our steps. You're welcome.
Good evening.
Get it?
Good evening.
There.
Okay, there we go. All right, the 12 steps. Number 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. I know nothing good lives in me. I want to do what is right, but I can't. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and a holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Let us test and examine our ways. Let us turn back to the Lord. Step 5. Be admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Step 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up in honor. Step 7. We humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. If we confess our sins to Him, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all wickedness. Step 8. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Step 9. We make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. If you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar and someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifices to God. Step 10. We continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. If you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. Step 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Devote yourself to prayer with an alert mind and a thankful heart. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path and be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, how's everyone doing tonight? All right, I'm on step 5, feelings of shame. Bible readings out of John chapter 8, 3 through 11. It says, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. It says, shame has kept many of us in hiding. The thought of admitting our sins and revealing ourselves to another human being stirs up feelings of shame and the fear of being publicly exposed. Teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd, says, teacher. They said to Jesus, the law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. Then he stooped down again and heard this. They slipped away one by one until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Many believe that it was Jesus writing. That's in John chapter 8, 3 through 9. And many believe that it was Jesus writing in the dust that caused the accusers to leave. Perhaps he was listing the secret sins of the Jewish leaders. If this is true, it gives us a beautiful picture of the kind of person Jesus is, a person to whom we can safely expose our secrets. Our confessor needs to be someone who is not surprised by sin and will not be willing to condemn us. Such a person needs to take a private note of our wrongs, writing them in the soft dust, not etching them in stone and posting them in public. It says that shame can be a trigger for addictive behavior. We need to be careful about whom we choose to confide in. And, like in that passage of scripture, in John chapter 8, verse 3 through 11. I think a lot of us need to realize this is when it says in verse number 9, it says, when the accusers heard that, after he had stooped down again and wrote in the dust, says when the accusers heard this in verse 9, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? And no, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Well, that's awesome. I don't know. I just thought that was a really good point to bring out.
Yes.
Jesus.
Good.
It's really true, brother. But going back here to shame had kept many of us into hiding. I thought about shame and always think on. I looked up definition of shame in recovery. Shame is internalizing guilt and believing that you yourself are bad because of the bad things we've done. Shame keeps us out there. Shame, I think that it says shame can be a trigger for addictive behavior. We need to be careful about whom we choose to confide in. And shame, I looked it up. And like I said, it's all about the bad things. There was a chart came off a video also that I looked up on YouTube, Truth About Recovery About Shame. And when we look about shame and guilt and shame are kind of interchangeable as far as in shame is looking to self and about all the wrong and the bad and about self, which can be an unhealthy part of recovery, and it can disconnect us, which it says shame has kept many of us in hiding. But it says the thought of admitting our sins and revealing ourselves to another human being, kind of said this because it says we admit it to God, step 5, to ourselves and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. But guilt is kind of something that we know once we've done something, we know that we've done the wrong behavior. It's more external. It's the more healthy type to let us know that we are and that we need connection. But I thought about the person, it says right here, it says a person whom we can safely expose, this down here in the reading here, it says Jesus is a beautiful person, beautiful picture of this kind of person Jesus is, a person whom we can safely expose our secrets. It says our confessor needs to be someone who is not surprised by sin and willing to be waiting and not waiting to condemn us. And so I thought about here, I kind of looked up shame, because I know I've dealt with a lot of shame and guilt here lately in some areas that I've talked about before. But this comes from actually treatment.org. It says, she says the reason why people feel shame in the recovery process is a stem off guilt and remorse of all the things we did. But she said if we internalize it in recovery, which is shame, it can be dangerous. When shame becomes part of your self-identity, it can prevent us from moving forward in recovery. So I know I've had a lot of guilt and shame in my recovery and stepping out. But from what I keep reading here is if I don't deal with that shame that I've dealt with, that I've had, it will keep me out there. It'll keep me, and it can't even be a trigger for addictive behavior. And so I've got to be more truthful. I've got to be more open to share this with some other people and get to the you know, to really internalize and to get recovery, like you were saying early on. And it says right here, it says that when shame becomes part of your self-identity, it can prevent us from moving forward in our recovery. A deep sense of shame.
Stop right there. Do you understand what that first part of that statement is saying? Read that again in the first part of the statement.
Says a deep sense of shame.
Go ahead.
Sets up the broader feeling of unworthiness, of being unworthy of love, support, or help.
Okay. Let read that. Let's start over. Begin that sentence again.
Okay, it says, but she said if we internalize it in recovery, it can be dangerous.
Right. Go on.
When shame becomes part of your self-identity,
That's what I'm trying to get you right there. When shame becomes we identify with shame, we say that's part of who we are. Okay, when we see ourselves as shameful, right? When we think of the picture of ourselves, we see ourselves in a shameful way. When we do that, then what that does cause us to be more overwhelmed, self-hatred, fearful, and then yes, that can very easily trigger us into our addictive behaviors.
because it's so easy to get caught up in from this study that, you know, I went into is if we focus more on our past, because it's so easy to get focused on the wrong things. And you talked about that, I think, this last week, where we try to overwhelm ourselves. We can never know. Our mind seems to work in a way where it just seems to put all that negative, and that's all we know, but we can't know all of it. I mean, we know all the negative that we've done, just like I've known all the negative I've done, but we can't do all negative. I mean,
But the issue here is we equate, and you got pretty close to even saying this. We equate or we equal shame and guilt as the same thing, and it's not. Okay. Guilt is knowing that you've done something wrong. I did something wrong. It's a matter of the doing. Shame is I am something that's wrong. I am all messed up. There's something wrong with me. That's shame. Okay? And when we're locked into I'm bad, there's something wrong with me, then there's no way out because I have identified me as shame or shameful. What we have to recognize is that, yes, I did something wrong. I feel bad about that wrong. That has to do with my doings. But that's not my being. That's my I do. It's not who I am. That's how I acted. Yes, that's what I did, but that's not who I am. How many times have you heard me say that statement? Okay, and the reason why is because you recognize that I did something wrong, but I am not shame. I am not, yes, I did it, but I can't get tied up or wrapped up with the cloak of shame, because then that causes you to get more overwhelmed. Which is basically what she said, but she said it in a few different words, but hopefully hopefully my words help there. Yes or no? No, yes? Huh? Yes?
Yes.
And it's hard, even when you know this, it's hard because we practice shame so much and it's used so much because it's such a good weapon. It's such a good tool to tear people up with and tear ourselves up with, right? Because it's an emotional weapon, okay? And what we have to do is we need to have that freedom that we're not, yes, I did it, but that's not who I am. That's what I did. I don't like what I did. I don't want to do that. Even if I do it again, I don't want to do that. But if I crawl into a hole of shame and hide and try to hide it, then chances are it's going to eat me up on the inside because there's no way to get free of it. And yes, that's exactly what that last statement is, that it sets us up for addictive behavior. Because you got to find some way to ease the pain, and you've put so much pain on yourself, you got to find some way to ease the pain, and usually then you go to your addictive behavior. I rest my case.
Pretty much said it. Like I said, we need something.
Sorry if I took it away from you.
Uh,
I got a question for you. How about that?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yep.
I wrote this down while I was studying. I got it on here, and it's, why do we feel shame? I think I already said it, but why do we feel shame?
Because when we makes us, like I said, makes us feel better. When we, I don't know, when we do something wrong, we definitely know that we've done it wrong. But as far as we like to look at the wrong instead of the right. Or I mean,
That's true. But your statement about makes us feel better, yeah, we like to punish ourselves for doing wrong. And one of the ways that we do that is by putting shame on ourselves. Okay? And that's emotional pain. You know, Spinoza said, suffering, which is emotion, or emotion, which is suffering, ceases to be suffering as soon as you get a clear and precise picture of it. And what we do is we shove all this emotional pain on us to try to teach us a lesson. How's that worked out for you, Brandon? How has it worked out for you? It hasn't. It only made things worse and not better, I'm suspecting. Would you agree with that? So, let's go back to my question again. Why do we feel shame?
done wrong.
We
hurt
could have
ourselves.
felt guilt, but we're talking about shame. Why do we jump from guilt right into shame? That's a good question. Well, we'll see if anybody else can come up with an answer. How about that? Maybe you will, as you think about it.
Is it because maybe we're like trying to please God or trying to do right? So like one little thing is like, I ruined it, or
Self-sabotage?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you'd have to be doing good to feel it, wouldn't you? Or trying to do
You would
good.
have to do good, feel what?
Shame.
You'd have to do good.
I think you'd have to be trying to do good, or your heart in a good place before you would feel it. I mean, if you were.
You could be a good intention, okay? But sometimes good intentions don't produce good results, right? Like punishing myself for doing something bad is because I want to do better. That's a good intention. But the fact of it is, Matthew, how's that worked out for you?
Hadn't worked. I've tried to use it to break some habits.
That's what I'm talking about. We believe a lie about punishment makes us better. It doesn't. But we're locked into that. And that's what shame is emotional punishment that we do to ourselves or we let other people do to us. So we're still at the question, why? Why do we punish what? Why do we feel shame? You can pass and go on to the next person, but unless you have something else.
That's it. Done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Glad
it.
to share it.
Fresh meat. Come on up there.
Ready?
Maybe you have it. All the answers.
Wish it did. Hello. Okay.
Feelings of shame. It's been interesting tonight so far. It's been good.
And we just got started. right?
Yeah. It's got my attention tonight. What scares me about sharing the exact nature of my wrongs with another human being? I put rejection, judgment, and being mocked. Made fun of and just beat up because of what you did. And all you're trying to do is get freedom from it. Who?
What does that say about the person that would do that to you? What does that say about them?
They're not the
Pull,
right.
pull that mic up to you.
No,
Raise it, raise it.
they're not the right people to be connected with.
Say that again,
They're not the right people to be connected
one
with.
more time,
They're not the right people to be connected with.
okay? And what does it say about your judgment?
Poor.
I didn't even get the whole question out. I'll accept your answer.
Poor judgment. Lack of.
Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we select people that are not the right people to be able to trust with
Because we
our
don't
stuff?
know.
And why do we have that poor judgment? Why?
We don't know any better when we're younger.
That could be true.
But as we get older, I still have it happen to me. You know, and it's like it's gonna always happen. As long as I don't learn from this, like the last time.
Yeah.
You know,
And why don't we learn?
we're not paying attention.
That's good.
We're only thinking about what we want.
That's good.
Say it again.
Why won't we learn from our mistakes? Why do we keep running the same trails over and over?
We
Talking
didn't,
to the
we
same
didn't know
kinds of
any
people.
better. That's what we know.
That's all we know.
That's what we know.
But
That's what we do.
but we don't more because we've made the mistakes and we said, well, I'll never do that again until we do it again the next time. Why? Why do we do that?
Choosing the wrong people to be connected to.
Why do we do that?
It feeds the addiction.
Mm-hmm. That's a very truthful statement right there. Isn't
Thank
it?
you. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Feeds the addiction.
These-
Yeah, and the addiction is what's taken over who I am, and it's made me a
So
monster.
you're saying then it feeds the addiction, so then we're actually looking for somebody to shame us or beat up on us.
Exactly.
And that
'Cause
feeds,
that's what. And
that
if it
feeds
doesn't
our-
happen, go ahead.
and that feeds our addiction.
Yeah, yeah.
Now that's interesting.
Feeds our addiction because it gives us a reason to go. See, I told you that's how they were, and just go get high. That happens every time I go down there. Pick the wrong person.
Hmm. That is way more powerful than I think that we're grasping.
Feeds the addiction. It's scary. Because addiction, I was thinking back this week about not like when I had little relapses and stuff, but like full blown. Like I knew where to get it and it was there and ready for me when I wanted it. And I was thinking about those times, you know. I was like, how did I ever end up in situations like that? Be careful who you're surrounding yourself with.
Good.
Who is my fear related to in my past? Me.
What does that mean?
How does this, it's because some more I fed my addiction. More that I fed it, like who is my fear related to in my past? Well, my past self was an addict, like I was just saying, a bad addict, like a severe addict, you know? And that scares me. I don't want to go back to that person. I don't want to be lost in all the shame and guilt.
And go ahead and answer let's talk about the last part of that question.
How did this fear develop?
Yeah.
The more I fed my addiction and ran from what I was supposed to be doing.
And how does this tie in with shame? This fear tying in with shame?
Because I was shameful because I wasn't living up to the expectations of the people around me. You know, maybe.
Which people are those?
Family. I'm thinking back when addiction was really bad, you know, and I still had my close family, a lot of them still living and stuff. And they would always tell me, now don't be doing this stuff, you know. First thing I do is, if it was available, I was doing something. So I was getting my nose dirty or my hands in something, you know, just bad. And that's the person, that's the me that I have the fear for. Because that can come back, and I don't ever want that. Deep breath. Huh. Any questions? Any questions?
Not yet. I mean, well, I've already asked a few,
Yeah.
but
No,
you know, I don't wanna,
No.
I wanna keep a little powder dry here.
Yeah. I didn't understand this question 3. Has there ever been a time in my life when I felt the fear and took action anyways? Well, my brain went from the negative part, thinking negatively, in the last 2 questions. And it was like, I was thinking, took action, like what, like negatively? Like, when I realized
Yes, I would say it's,
that's what my brain was
the
thinking
fear,
about.
the fear, you know, you felt the fear of something. It could have been, to further your addiction or not to further your addiction, okay? Something bad is gonna happen, but you do it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Kinda like
for
what, you know,
years, yeah.
You basically said this a moment
Already.
ago when you was talking about your family.
Yeah.
You know, they said not to do it, you know, I thought about it, but I did it anyway, lightly. But they're a little more intense here where they're saying, has there ever been a time in your life that you felt the fear, but you did it anyway?
Yeah, and I was thinking of the positive. Sometimes all that fear that you had before you went to take action was just yourself. It was in you. And
What, you talking about fear that I shouldn't be doing this or something
fear
else?
of when you're supposed to do something. And then you
Do something right?
Yes.
Do something good.
do something positive. You know, when you're supposed to, it could be something little and you're just scared to do it. And I found that there's so many things since I've gotten clean that I never thought before that I could do. And it's like that fear is there. And it's like, you know, it can be uncomfortable.
Well, I think they're more asking, I believe what they're asking here is that you knew that you were on the threshold of doing something wrong or using again, and you had the fear.
Yes.
But you overrode your fear by going ahead and taking action. In other words,
But-
you drove
yeah.
yourself through it.
Yeah. I've been through it where,
One of the ways we do that, I'm
Go
interrupting,
ahead.
is by rationalizing to ourselves. Well, I'm already here, or I'm just gonna do it one time, or I don't wanna be, I don't wanna lose my friends here that,
yeah,
or,
I've already had some of this.
yes, and, you know, it's not gonna be so bad,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want them to think less of me, you know, what's.
It's not like I'm gonna do it all the time.
All that
Yeah.
stuff, you know,
Okay.
all the different excuses, the toxic excuses to help us to go ahead and override what we know we shouldn't do.
Makes sense. This last question, I didn't answer it. I didn't set a date or nothing. I feel like we kind of do that down here. Every Saturday, kind of.
Okay.
You know? This is where I go, this is where I'm comfortable.
So you kind of do set a date,
Yeah, every Saturday,
every day. Okay.
6 p.m.,
7.
7.
Well, the meetings, you may be here at 6, but the meeting
Yeah.
starts at 7. You start working on me at 6:30.
Yes. This whole thing, man, I didn't like it in the beginning of the week because I read all of it and it was like reading a blank slate, and even though there was words on it, none of it made sense. You know? And the more that I just quieted myself and stopped letting my self-talk and the self-chatter get in the way, and I started letting Siri read the questions to me.
Yeah,
I'd set an alarm maybe twice a day, and I'd let Siri read the questions to me, and then read me what Brandon read, and the step part. And it's like I'll have Siri read it to me, and then maybe I'll look at it and read it. And all of a sudden, it just started making sense
good.
that it's scary to get clean. It's scary to get your mind back. And
Why is that?
well, when you've been a drug addict for 25 years, it doesn't seem like it's something it's gonna happen or not,
So why is it scary?
because it's new.
Okay. Any other
There's
reason?
no chaos. There's not as much chaos there. Not as much just crazy. It's peaceful.
We're not there yet.
Where
Why is it scary?
because you're trapped. It's new.
It's new. And what does that mean?
You have to learn.
What does that mean?
You better study. Where are we going with this?
Well, studying this, yeah. The biggest thing, I think there's two things here.
Yes.
One is that it's unfamiliar and fear of failure. Failure.
I didn't fit in here before.
I shame
so-
myself by saying I can't do it.
See, here comes the shame stuff. I can't do it because.
That's what I'm talking about.
So that's shaming.
That it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. How's that worked out for you?
It's destroyed my life.
There you go.
So I've been able, through God, to put it back together.
Thank you,
Do
Jesus.
these steps and, I'm learning.
Any questions from anyone?
All right. Thank you. Willie?
You did good.
Yeah, wow. Thank you.
Long way from where you started, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the first of the week.
That's what I was talking
Yeah. Hi, Naomi.
Hi, Doug.
Like I had nothing.
You want buddy?
Beginning of the week, I was getting nothing.
Well, and see, and that's why we do this, is because the process helps us to start clearing out the trash and creating some new, healthy neural pathways. And it takes some time to lay that stuff down. And that's the reason why I start on this Monday morning. So I do the same thing. I work on it multiple times a week, and then I bear down on it at the end of the week. So, you're on, man.
Good evening.
Amen.
Feeling ashamed. We take this to a different approach than Tommy's, because I never had the drug addiction. Mine was with people. I hated people. Didn't really care. So, I really didn't care what you thought of me, and I didn't really care because I really didn't think much of you at that time. So, when I go to question one, what scares me about sharing the exact natures of my wrongs with another human being? Then you're just going to gossip what you hear. Because, that's still, my mindset's on that part way. So the shame is keeping me from actually telling you what I actually done. I know, on that. I come back when I was running around doing my deal. If someone didn't like what I did, I'd tell them to shut up. They didn't shut up, I'd shut them up. I come by that naturally. My dad taught me well. Not saying it was right, but he taught me well. I wish he would have taught me how to run. That's the only thing he never taught me. So,
Believe in yourself.
now question two, this is a question that I had the trouble with. I couldn't comprehend what it was asking me there on who is my fear related to in my past. Well, fear was related to the shame. Because there's only really two types of feelings. Fear and love. And they can't have both of them. And when you're living out of fear, it's all gonna be shameful to you at one point or another. On that. Question 3, has there ever been a time in my life when I felt the fear and took action anyway? Yes. Because I just ignored the red flags when they popped up. I didn't care. I just didn't care to acknowledge them. So I'd go on, hey, I'll handle that consequences when I get there. You know, when them consequences fired up, if they didn't go my way, I tried to make it my way. It's always been my way or no way. And it kept me shameful. That's the way I lived most of my younger life. Be quite honest, it wasn't here till a couple years ago that I really took the turn to find out. That's one of them, try to fake it till you make it. I did a pretty good job on it. I didn't have no regrets on what I did. I really didn't care. That's all changed. Start talking to more people. Start trying to do what's right. We just play it by ear.
And what does that do for you? What, that shift? Why? And what's the benefit?
Benefit, it's a lot clearer. It's a lot easier on you. You don't have the burden that, okay, are they gonna come back tomorrow and say something that I've done? And then I'm gonna have to say something to retaliate on that. And it's just a big relief when you can look a person in the eye and say, hey, sorry about this, man.
So then, I'm gonna use a little different words.
Okay.
So your old system basically instituted chaos into your
Yeah.
life. And so chaos breeds chaos.
Right.
And so you had to continually deal with more and more chaos. And somewhere along the line, you decided,
Enough's enough.
okay, I didn't want to put words in it.
Yeah.
And so then, this way, trying to live with less chaos and more order, is a more beneficial, that's not the word I'm looking for. It has a greater, it fulfills your, I'm assuming that it fulfills your need for purpose and worth and value.
Yes. It takes out the void or the emptiness of the retaliation part.
And what about, we're talking about shame, and so what is this shift in system done for you in the area of shame?
I don't think about shame much anymore. I mean, it took away the, okay, if I can, okay, I do this way, I don't have to worry about they're gonna come back. So I don't have to worry about the shame of what I did.
Okay. So the question that I asked Brandon earlier, why do we feel shame? Do you have an answer for that question?
Why do
We feel shame.
why do I feel shame? Let's put it that way.
Good, yeah.
Why do I feel shame? Because it's what I programmed into me. It's what I taught myself to feel,
For what purpose?
to make me feel better. Or not to make me feel justified in what I've done.
So shame made you feel more justified for what you've done?
Justified ain't the right word.
Okay.
Shame made. Let me start over here. I lost my
I
train
wasn't,
of thought.
I wasn't trying to trick you. I was just
No,
trying
I
to.
tricked myself. I got a bad habit about that too. That could be next month.
So why do
Why do-
you feel shame?
Shame. I feel shame because I didn't give the respect to the person that I should have.
Okay, so why do you feel shame? Why do you shame yourself for that?
To give me an excuse to do it again.
And basically shame is self-punishment.
Yeah.
Okay, and that you're punishing yourself for doing something wrong.
Right.
And that is a psychological way of making us feel better, but the trouble is, it actually makes us feel worse. But we're at least doing something about it,
Right.
even though it's not beneficial, in my opinion.
Never is. There's never no good alternative to it. Or, not that. There's never. Never mind. Scratch that.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna stop right there. I'm done.
Thank you, Willie. So Tommy, you got by without me asking you that question.
What was it?
Why do we feel shame?
Jesus. Jesus better.
Teach us better.
Oh, wait, that's guilt. Guilt, never mind. Shame doesn't teach us nothing. It tears us down, it breaks us apart.
Okay, so then why do you shame yourself?
Self-worth.
Do what?
Lack of self-worth.
Lack of self-worth. And so,
Standards.
do what?
Standards are low.
Okay, and that's why you shame yourself. Okay, for what purpose? Well, think about it.
It's just.
I'm asking the same question, but I'm using different words.
Because I did wrong.
Okay, you're shaming yourself, for what purpose?
Well, it doesn't make nothing better.
So why do we do it then? If it doesn't make anything better, then why do you do it?
That's why I'm here. Learn. I don't know the answer to that.
But, that's a good answer, I think.
Yeah.
All right. And I think that's one of the things we need to recognize is why do I shame myself? Okay. Again, let's go back to what shame is. Now, I know some people will take issue with my statement here because they say, well, a little bit of shame is good. Well, and I don't know that that's not so. The trouble is, we're not talking about a little bit of shame. We're talking about a boatload of shame that we dump on ourselves, right? But the fact of it is, shame, guilt is that I did something bad. Shame is I'm bad. There's something wrong with me. It's about me. That I'm shaming me. And see, it's real easy to flip over from I did something bad to I'm just a bad person. That I'm bad. Not that I did something bad, I'm bad. Well, how do you fix that? Okay, and because it went from hard to extremely complicated right there. Maybe even impossible. Does that make sense? And so what we, and see, well, let me read this. And I read this last week and I printed it out again because I think it applies. And this is Dr. Carl Jung statement here. It says the psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, when an inner, inside, okay, we're talking about emotional stuff and it's inside, when an inner situation is not made conscious, that it's pushing you around emotionally, but we're not really paying attention consciously. And that's how shame creeps in, I think, is that I just buy into the system that there's something wrong with me. I used to think there was something wrong with me. I used to think I had a big old gaping hole. And there was no way to fix it. There was nothing I could do to make me feel better. I couldn't. I mean, whatever you did, it didn't work. Does that make sense? And I realized one day I somehow I come up with the idea, well, what if that's not true? I just think it's true. I think I feel it. Okay. So therefore I believed it. And I play into the role of self-torture and trying to fix it, but there was no way to ever feel or fix what was going on. Does that make sense? So here we are. It says that that when the inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. And so what happens is, we believe this, we shame ourselves, and then we create our world based on our shameful feelings. You basically told that story, right? And the story may have different scenes and different people, but it's pretty much the same. Amen or oh me. So let's go on. Let's finish it starts because I believe my self-pollution and my emotional turmoil that I put on myself, maybe with good intention, because I really wanted to fix myself, but I was using some sick methods to do it, which actually made me worse, not better. Am I too passionate here? Okay. So then we create a world that is made out of my sickness. And if you create a world out of sickness, then you have a sick world. And you just get sicker. Does that make sense? All right. So let's calm down and talk about Dr. Jung's statement here and finish the second part of it. That is to say, when the individual remains undivided, what that means is when you see let's use shame here. If I see myself as shameful, I am a shameful mess. I see myself as an entity of shame. What he's talking about here is what basically dividing myself. This is what I did, and this is who I am. My doings and my being. And until I become conscious that there's a difference between those two situations, okay? Instead of seeing it as one, you have to break it up into see it as two. My doings, Apostle Paul said the same thing, Romans chapter 7, okay? All right, he broke it down. What I want to do, I don't do. That I do, I don't want to do that. Oh, wretched man I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? But in my mind, I'll serve God. But in my flesh, I'm stuck in this fleshly stuff. And what we have to do is rise up out of our earthly nature, and that's what we're talking about here, and move into a spiritual conception of understanding this is doings, this is being. In my heart, and I believe this with all my heart was always right. I wanted to be right. That's the reason why we punish ourselves, because we want to be right. That's a good nature. God put that in us. I want to do right, but I get so twisted up and I get so shame-based that my actions override my true intent, and I fall back into doing what my emotional suffering dictates. Does that make sense? Is that too much? Is that too many words? So he goes on to say is that, so that is to say, I'm starting over on the second part, when the individual remains undivided and does not become conscious of his inner opposite, okay, it says it pretty plain, the inner opposite. Even Dr. Young talked about the shadow side, that shadow side of ourselves. And the shadow side's not all bad, but it's pretty rough on us, particularly when we're trying to hide it and avoid it, and we believe that it's bad. If you believe it's bad, then you act out that you think it's bad, okay? But if we can become conscious of these dynamics and realize, break this apart, individuate is how he terms it, that we're able to do that. Now, we come to a place where we split it apart. But as we become healthier, then we're able to use the strength and the positive benefits of these opposite parts, as he said here, in a positive way instead of in a negative way. But that's in the growth process. Does any of that make potential sense? Anyway, that is the way it is, even though it may be difficult to see. I'm just saying there is hope. Okay, there's hope out there in front of us. Okay, but we first have to survive, and we have to work on sabotaging ourselves less. What do you think about that? So let's finish this statement and become conscious of the inner opposite, and the world must perforce act out the conflict. What it's saying is that certainly the world situation will create the negative mess if we continue to live in that mess. And we're talking about shame tonight, particularly. So if we live in that shame, our world will shift us into actually living out the sick, negative aspects of our shamefulness. And we're not even able to deal with the things we did wrong, because it sucks all of the strength and power out of us and makes us worse and not better. What do you think about that statement?
I think it's true.
And I touched on this a while ago, but I had this right underneath this quote for tonight. It was Spinoza says, emotion, which is suffering. Okay, and that's what we're talking about here, inflicting emotional suffering on ourselves. Okay, shame, okay, in particular here, causes to emotion, which is suffering, ceases to be suffering as soon as we get a clear and precise picture of it, which is very similar to what Young was talking about here, is being able to see the opposite aspect of it. It means your picture gets more clear what's going on. I'm doing this to myself. Of course, I blame everybody else, but it's me doing it to me. I'm my worst enemy, and we should be our best friend. Hello? 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 Should we not be our best friend? Should we treat ourselves like a worthy, healthy, worthwhile person, that we treat them kindly, fairly, considerately, like you would treat a good friend? Should you not be your own best friend? And if there's that part of you that is sick, then you understand that part of you needs some healthy tending to. How's that? Because that's what you'd do for a good friend, right? Okay. I have another quote down here. This is quote night, I guess, right? And that is from Dr. Dan Siegel. And he said this, he says, you have to name it to tame it. You have to name it to tame it. In other words, you have to get that clarity that Spinoza was talking about and that Jung was talking about, bringing it into our consciousness, that we finally say, aha, I see what's going on here. I talk to me way worse than I would ever talk to a valuable friend or a person I value, appreciate. I never let anybody else say some of the things to me that I say to myself. So how sick is that? You do it to you? How sick is that? You do it to you? How sick is that? Is important, so I said it 3 times. Thoughts, questions, comments? I got 15 minutes to go to the exact nature of our wrongs, okay, which all this ties in together. And step 5 here is that we admit to God, to ourselves. We're talking about clarity here. We admit to God. We admit to ourselves, clarity, God, clarity, me, clarity, and to another human being. And that brings us even into a better place of clarity, okay? Because we have to pick the right person, a trusted person that would write the offense in the dust and not in stone, okay? One that can handle what's going on because they understand. That's about your doings and not about your being. Okay, that's what you did. And as we begin to get clarity, which I want to talk more about that in a minute. So step 1, we're going to rehearse the first 5 steps right here real quick, okay? To kind of help us to recognize that we're in a recovery ladder here, okay? And step 1 is we admit that we are powerless over our problems. We're powerless over our problems. We admit that. Why is that so hard to admit? But it is sometimes. Because we don't want to believe. We want to lie to ourselves, okay? Well, it makes me feel bad to admit that I'm powerless. I don't want to believe that. But if we stay stuck there, and we can't get better. Even if you go to the doctor, he asks, what's wrong? What's the problem? Because before he prescribes, even though you want, hey, just give me X or give me Y, he says, no, I have to diagnose before I prescribe. Isn't that true? Right. So what we have to do is we have to get clarity and we have to recognize. So step 1 is we admit that we are powerless over our problems. I can't seem to get this thing whipped because it's whipping me. And that our lives are unmanageable. They're out of control. I'm living in the land of chaos. How in the world did I get here? And the more I try, the more chaos I cause to try to get myself out of it, only causes me to have more chaos. Which goes back to some of the stuff you were talking about. Number 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. We got to believe there is hope. There's a way out. I want sanity because I'm in chaos, and that's insane. Would you agree with that? Living in insanity. And when we're in insanity, then that means, how's your choices? What kind of choices are you making in the state of insanity? Hello? Yes. And so that because if I can do it, chances are I'd already done it. So it takes something that's not in me to help me. And that's the reason why we have to have that greater power to help me. Anything. But the program, a person, God, something to help us to begin to grab a hold of, saying, this is what I already said about Jung and Spinoza about shifting, recognizing, getting clarity, recognizing the opposite, and being able to get clarity on what's going on. Because when finally you get clarity, when you finally say, I am messed up, I've tried this for 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, 40 years, and I'm still doing the same thing that I've always done. Have I heard that? How many times have I heard that? I've heard it a lot. And then they'll say, there is something there that can restore me to sanity, because I can see it in other people. So that I know there's a way. I can't see it. The reason why is because you have clouded your own thinking. Would you agree with that? Step 3 is I made a decision. That means I make a decision. I'm doing this because, see, I made the decision in the past to turn my life over to other stuff. So it's not like you're not willing to turn your life over to other stuff, because you've been doing it. And you think that you're not gonna bend your knee to anything. Well, you've been doing it already. But you're lying to yourself. You get what I'm saying? Is that too harsh? And so what we're doing is we make a decision to turn our will. Okay. I need to hire a driver, somebody that can drive me around in my life instead of the way that I've done it. I turn my will over to that higher power, and my life and the care over to God. I don't know how this works. Jesus, take the wheel. That's way too scary. But the other way hadn't worked out. So how worse could that be? It might be just a whole lot better. Number 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Moral is, we know we have the morality inside of us. We all know. We may not be able to say what we're supposed to do right, but we all know what's wrong. We know when we've done wrong. From very early age, we know because it's inside of us. Now, yes, we do cover it up. The scripture talks about searing our conscience with a hot iron. But yes, we put calluses and burns and stuff on it to try to deaden it out, behaviors and substances and blah, 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 blah. But it's still there. It comes out. It whispers to you. And you know it's true. Right? You know it's true. You don't want it to be true, because then you'll have to do something about it. But you know you need to do something about it. And he wants to help you. But you have to start. So what do? Well, recognize that you're messed up, you got a problem. Recognize that you need to accept the fact that there's somebody out there, supreme being, that can help. God, in my book, And he's there and he wants to help. Because there's no way that this all could come in the being without some supreme being bringing it to pass. It's way too complex. The world had to be just right for us to be able to even live. It was just the tolerance is small, and we fit. It's like a key fitting right into the slot, and that's where we're at. How did that happen? What are the odds? I don't know. They're staggering. It's staggering. One out of staggering odds. And you're a winner in the process, whether you believe it or not, because you're here. So we make this searching moral inventory. Number 4, 5, we admit to God. We talked about that. We ourselves, we get real with ourselves. Why? Because we got to get honest with ourselves. We got to stop sabotaging ourselves. And then we have to be real with another safe person because the human element is that we need to know, I think we have to have a living example of the truth of God's forgiveness and healing, mercy, demonstrated to us in a human physical way. That somebody can demonstrate, represent that, and demonstrate the grace, the mercy, the forgiveness, the acceptance, the love. What do you think? All right, so the exact nature, when we talk about nature, nature is, I looked it up in the Webster Dictionary. It says the inherent character or basic constitution of a person or thing, essence, their nature, their essence, okay? The exact nature of what we done is wrong, the essence of what I did, right? And it goes on to say that the disposition and temperament of the thing, the physical constitution or the drives of an organism. What drove me into that? And it's usually that shame, it's fear of failure, it's pain, it's trauma. There's all kinds of things. And when we look at the exact nature, not just what I did, but why I did it, that helps me then to realize and then begin to heal, to let it go, to resolve. That is what Spinoza was talking about, a clear and precise picture of. Does that make sense? When we can start to get that clarity, yes, that's what I did. My mother did X and Y, or this was done to me X or Y, but that's what happened. But then, what did I do to me after that? What were my choices after? Yes, that was the event, but then because I was hurt, angry, traumatized, taught wrong, then I behaved this way because I was trying to get back at the world, at myself, at God, at something, at life. And how's that going to work out for you? We can't change the past. But when we start to realize what I was trying to do, I was afraid of something that that I wouldn't even try to deal with because it felt so big. So I just kept stirring up more chaos and being more and more angry. And when I realized, didn't make it easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. It's doable. But the only way it's doable is to be able to look at the exact nature of what's going on and then confess that. And the trouble is, well, to get total clarity, it may take a long time to get total clarity, but you'll start getting some clarity, and you can only deal with what you can deal with in the time. Does that make sense? And that helps you little, by piece by piece. Step 5 is asking us to understand the exact nature, the exact inherent character, the basic constitution of our wrongs in order to accept, to own, and even to correct them. That's the reason why later on in the steps it talks about making amends. It's not, it can help others, but it's more about helping ourselves, healing ourselves, fixing ourselves, being able to say, I want to be different. So I want to do different. I want to have different ways about me. Does that make sense? And that transforms us from the inside, because we're healing our own soul that way. I've got down here, it says, there is a powerful difference between making a laundry list of transgressions, not just about what we've done, okay, or the character defects, okay, but it's understanding what drove us in those things. Because if we just stop the doings, if we just finally somehow strong will ourselves to stop doing things, we'll do other things because we haven't fixed what's driving. And this fixing the driving is what we call recovery. Healing on the inside, resolving the stuff. And where we're going, we won't be meeting next week, but the week following is step 6. We are entirely ready. We are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Okay, we're ready. We're ready to make a shift. We're ready to move. I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has brought us up to the position that I'm getting ready. Step 6 is just about getting ready. It's not about doing it yet. It's just I'm making some mental plans, some emotional plans. I'm getting ready for God to be able to come in and help me to remove some of my defects. We're not talking about letting them go yet. We're just getting ready in step 6. So next month, we're prepping ourselves to get ready. Okay? Now, if you go in and start doing step 7, you're welcome to. But step 6 is about just what I said. We're getting ready. Questions, comments? Well, thank you. Thank you. Hopefully, I told you in the beginning, I wanted to communicate, bring some clarity, hopefully help to bring us into a better state of clarity, to bring us into recovery. And that's what I want. Thank you.
About your question, if you had to cut something out,
Yeah,
couldn't you just cut a little bit off the front, a little bit off the back?
I could. And we may have to do that. In other words, I need to shut up, right?
No, not at all.
So
But keep it all,
keep it all.
but maybe just. There's some small slices.
Okay, thank you. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace. And what'd you say? Park, you bet. Yeah, we have some flyers back in the back. We're gonna have Church in the Park, Turk Park, Fourth and Turk. And at 10:30, come early. Gonna have hamburgers and hot dogs, and it's at Turk Street, Leonard Park.
I know what it is, right now, Range Line.
Close to Range Line, 10:30. Make healthy choices. Bye-bye.